If he is not dead by midnight, we are all dead by morning. Wu said it the way men say things they have already decided. No hesitation, no apology. Just the flat, clean sound of a verdict being delivered to a room full of men who had already chosen their side. Zara froze. She was 3 steps inside the service corridor, holding a clipboard, doing her job, when those words walked through the wall and hit her in the chest like something physical. She pressed her back against the cold surface and stopped breathing. Through the narrow gap in the door she could see them, 5 men, expensive suits, faces she did not know, and one face she did know because it was mounted in a golden frame on the wall directly across from her, surrounded by white funeral flowers, staring back at her from inside its own memorial arrangement. The man in that photograph was not dead. She had passed him in the lobby 40 minutes ago. Dark suit, scar along his jaw, eyes that swept the room once and saw everything in it. She had felt those eyes land on her for exactly 2 seconds before he moved on. He was somewhere in this building right now, and the men in that room were waiting for someone to make sure he never walked out of it. Wu turned toward the door. Zara did not think, she moved. Because somewhere in this building, a man was standing at the edge of something he could not see yet, and she was the only person who knew it. To understand why Zara did not run, you have to understand who she was before that corridor. She had built her career from the ground up. No connections, no family money, no shortcut. Just an eye for detail so sharp it made clients nervous and a composure in high-pressure rooms that made them trust her completely. By 29, she was the kind of event coordinator that certain people called when they needed something handled without any loose ends. She did not ask where money came from. She had learned that lesson the efficient way. You do your job, you do it impeccably, and you go home. But going home had never been entirely simple for Zara, because home was also where the memory of her brother lived. His name was David, older than her by 4 years. Smart in the way that people who never get the right opportunities are smart. He had walked into a situation he could not fully read, and when the moment came to speak, to warn someone, to do the thing that needed to be done, he chose silence. He believed silence was safety. He was wrong. Zara had spent 10 years carrying that knowledge the way you carry something heavy that you cannot put down, because putting it down would mean it meant nothing. So when she pressed herself against that corridor wall tonight and heard what she heard, something older and deeper than fear made the decision before her mind caught up. She was not going to be David. Not tonight. The hall was a masterpiece of misdirection. Everything about it looked like grief. The white lilies arranged in precise formations along the aisle, the black velvet draping over the central podium, the rows of seating set for no fewer than 200 guests, each chair bearing a small printed program that Zara picked up with fingers that were not entirely steady. The program was beautiful, professionally designed. It had a photograph on the front. Beneath the photograph, a name. Beneath the name, 2 dates. And beneath the dates, a line that someone had chosen with great care. He built an empire. The empire outlived him. He was not dead. She had seen him 40 minutes ago. She moved deeper into the hall, scanning everything with the trained eye of someone who had built events like this from scratch and knew every element that should be present and what its presence meant. There was a guest list on the coordination table, 83 names. She did not recognize most of them, but she recognized the format. She had seen lists like this before, not at memorials, at succession events, the kind of gathering where one era is formally closed and another is formally opened. This was not a funeral for a dead man. This was a funeral for a living man's power. Before we go any further, I have to ask, where in the world are you watching this right now? Drop your city in the comments, because what Zara is about to do next, most people in most places would never have the nerve. Someone was not just planning to kill Kang tonight. They were planning to absorb everything he had built the moment he was gone. The event was not a cover. The event was the point. They needed witnesses. They needed the community to see the transition happen cleanly, formally, with flowers and programs, and a eulogy that made it sound inevitable, and Zara had been hired to make sure it all went smoothly. She found the coordination folder she had been given at the agency. She had read the brief 3 times before arriving. It had described this as a private memorial for a recently deceased patriarch. She had accepted that without question because the money was significant and the agency had vouched for the client. But the client was Wu. She understood that now. She pulled out the original booking confirmation and looked at the contact name she had skimmed past because it had meant nothing to her then. It meant something now. Wu had hired her. Wu had written the brief. Wu had built this entire event around the assumption that by the time guests arrived tonight, Kang would already be dead. And Wu had needed someone professional and external and entirely disconnected from this world to manage the logistics, because anyone from inside would have understood what they were being asked to build. He had needed someone exactly like Zara. She set the folder down very carefully. The doors behind her were closed. The men she had heard in that side room were still somewhere in this building. She did not know how many of them there were, or where Kang was, or how much time she had. She knew only one thing with complete certainty. She had to find him before they did. Running was the intelligent choice. She knew that with the same certainty she knew her own name. She was a contractor, an outside hire. If she walked out of that building right now and got into her car and drove away and never looked back, there was a reasonable argument that no one would come after her. She was nobody to these people. She was the event coordinator, the external vendor who saw too much but had enough sense to disappear quietly. That was the intelligent choice. She stood at the door for 11 seconds. She counted them. 11 seconds of pure silence inside her head where normally there was always something running, calculating, planning, and then David's face appeared in that silence. Not his smile, not his voice, just his face on the last day she saw it. The specific quality of the regret in his eyes that she had spent 10 years trying to decode. She understood it now. He had known. He had known something was wrong, and he had chosen the door, and he had never forgiven himself for it. That was what she had been reading in his eyes for the last 10 years without the language to name it. She released the door handle. She turned around. She needed to find Kang. She did not know this building well. She had been given access only to the event hall and the coordination suite. But she had arrived early, as she always did, and she had walked the venue the way she always walked every venue, mapping it, noting exits, noting flow, noting where people gathered and where they did not. She had seen him earlier near the private lounge on the upper level, the kind of space that venues like this kept for principal guests who needed to prepare before making their entrance. If he was still in the building and not yet aware of what was happening below him, that was where he would be. She moved toward the east stairwell. Every second she spent inside this building was a second that Wu and his men could discover she was not where she was supposed to be. She focused only on the next step, then the next one. She was halfway up the stairs when she heard voices below her. Wu's voice, and the sound of footsteps moving toward the stairwell. She did not run. Running made sound. Sound made discovery. She pressed herself into the alcove at the stairwell landing and breathed through her nose in the slow, controlled way she had learned years ago when the stakes had been smaller but the panic had felt the same. The footsteps passed below her. 2 sets, moving toward the hall. She gave them 30 seconds, then continued up. The upper level of the venue was darker. She moved door by door, listening at each one before passing. Most were silent. One had the sound of a phone call in a language she did not speak. She kept moving. The third door from the end had light coming from beneath it, and the particular quality of silence that exists in a room where someone is very still and very awake. She raised her hand to knock, then stopped. If she knocked and it was one of Wu's men, she was finished. She needed to be certain. There was a small service panel to the right of the door. Venue staff used them to check room occupancy before entering. She opened it carefully, single occupant. She knocked 3 times. Even, professional. The silence on the other side changed quality. Then the door opened. He did not speak, he simply looked at her. Kang had the kind of eyes that performed an entire threat assessment in the time it took most people to say hello. She felt them move across her face, her hands, her posture, the corridor behind her, all of it in under 3 seconds. "I need to speak to you," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "Right now, inside, please." He did not move. "You are the event coordinator," he said. His English was precise and slightly formal. "You were in the lobby earlier." "Yes." "Why are you on this floor?" It was not a question. It was a test. "Because they are going to kill you tonight," she said. "The event downstairs, the flowers, the photographs, the eulogy. It is not for a dead man. It is for you. And the men running it are already in this building." 1 second of absolute silence. 2 seconds. Then Kang stepped back from the door and opened it fully. "Come in," he said. Not because he trusted her. Zara understood that clearly as she stepped past him into the room. He was bringing her inside because a woman standing in an upper corridor talking about his murder was a variable that needed to be controlled, not because he believed a single word she had said. She was inside. She was talking. That was all she had. For now, it would have to be enough. He listened to everything she said without interrupting once. That was the first thing that surprised her. She had prepared herself for dismissal, for the specific kind of contempt that powerful men deploy against people they consider beneath their concern. But he did not give her contempt. He gave her something far more difficult to navigate. He gave her absolute silence. She told him everything. The corridor, the voices, Wu's words, the hall, the program, the guest list, the booking confirmation with Wu's name on it. She spoke quickly but precisely, the way she delivered event briefings, all information in order of relevance, nothing withheld. When she finished, Kang turned away from her and looked at the window. "Wu," he said. "Just the name, nothing else." The word landed in the room and stayed there like something physical. Zara waited. She had learned long ago that the moment after you deliver difficult information is not the moment to keep speaking. The moment after belonged to the person receiving it. He turned back to face her. Those dark eyes were even stiller now, the kind of still that exists on the other side of something shattering. "How did you get this booking?" he said. "Through my agency. A private client under the name on the confirmation. I was told it was a memorial event. I was given no other information, and I did not ask for any." "Your agency?" "Prestige Event Group. I have worked with them for 3 years." "And you came here alone?" "I always arrive first. I was conducting my initial venue walkthrough when I heard the conversation." He studied her for a long moment. She held his gaze because looking away now would cost her everything. "You could be working for him," he said. "You understand that. You could be here to create a distraction, or to deliver a message, or to test how I respond under sudden pressure." "I could be," she said. "I am not." People who are lying say exactly that. So do people who are telling the truth. Something shifted almost imperceptibly in his expression. Not trust, not yet, but a small recalibration. "I want to know what you think right now. Does Kang trust her? Drop it in the comments. Yes or no? Because the decision he makes in the next 30 seconds changes everything." He walked to the small side table and picked up his phone. He made a single call, 2 words in Korean, then ended it. She did not know what he said, but the quality of the air in the room changed. He looked at her again. "Day is coming," he said. "My advisor. He will verify your agency, your name, your booking. If what you are telling me checks against what he finds, we continue this conversation. And if it does not, then you will not be leaving this room." The wait was 6 minutes long. Zara counted those 2. She stood in the center of the room because sitting down felt like surrender, and she was not surrendering anything. Day arrived with the quiet efficiency of a man who had been in urgent situations long enough that urgency no longer showed on his face. He looked at Zara without speaking. Then he spoke to Kang in Korean. A short exchange. Measured. Then Day looked at her again. "Your booking is real," Day said in careful English. "You are who you say you are." Kang did not react visibly, but the configuration of the room changed. He moved. He picked up his jacket from the chair. He looked at Zara with an expression she could not fully read. "Then we have a problem," he said. "We?" she said. "They know you are here. When you do not return to the hall on schedule, they will look for you, which means they know you found something, which means you are already part of this whether you chose to be or not." The silence that followed was the loudest thing she had heard all night. She had not thought about that. She had been so focused on reaching him, on delivering the warning, on completing the one thing she had decided she had to do, that she had not extended her thinking past it. And in the space of 2 sentences, Kang had shown her exactly how far she had not thought ahead. This was what he did. She understood that now. He did not just react to situations. He mapped them faster than the people creating them. "They hired you specifically because you are external," he said, not looking at her now, looking at the window again, thinking aloud in the way of someone whose internal process was simply faster when spoken. Someone who would not know the names, would not know the connections, would not know what she was building until it was already built. When you do not reappear on schedule, the first assumption is that you ran. But the second assumption, the one that Wu will move to very quickly, is that you found something you should not have found. And if he thinks that, she said slowly, then finding you becomes as urgent as finding me. She sat down. She did not decide to sit down. Her legs made that decision independently. "I was not supposed to be in any danger tonight," she said. "I was hired to arrange flowers." He turned from the window and looked at her then. And for the first time, something in his expression acknowledged that she was a person in this situation rather than simply a variable in it. "No," he said, "you were not." There was a silence between them that was different from the previous silences. The earlier ones had been adversarial. This one was shared. 2 people standing on the same burning ground looking at each other across it. "I can get you out," he said. "There is a service exit on the north side of the building that Wu will not have covered. My men installed it 2 years ago when we began using this location. What about you?" "I am not leaving." She looked at him. "They are going to try to kill you tonight." "Yes, which is why I am staying. This ends tonight." "I am not leaving either," Zara said. He stared at her. "I am sorry?" "You said it yourself. They already know I found something. Running does not make me safe. It just makes me a loose end they deal with at their convenience." She held his gaze. "Whereas if I stay, and this ends tonight the way you intend it to, then I was never here." He was quiet for a long moment. Then the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, something more contained and more interesting than a smile. "You coordinated this entire logic in under a minute," he said. "I coordinate things," she said. "It is what I do." Day, watching from the doorway, said nothing, but his eyes moved between the 2 of them with the quiet attention of a man who had lived long enough to recognize the beginning of something. The plan was clean. Kang would make contact with his 3 most trusted field operatives through Day. They would move through the building from 3 entry points simultaneously, neutralizing Wu's men before the guests arrived. Zara would remain on the upper level with Day. When it was over, she would be escorted out through the north service exit and a vehicle would take her to safety. It was a good plan. It lasted exactly 19 minutes. Day took the call 19 minutes after they began coordinating. He listened. He did not speak. His expression did not change. When he ended the call, he stood very still for a moment before turning to face Kang. "Your 3 field contacts," Day said. "They were reached out to an hour ago. All three have been removed from the situation. Kang went completely still. Removed, he said. They were intercepted before they could reach the building. Whoever planned this knew which three you would call. They knew the order, they knew the routes. The room recalibrated entirely. Zara felt it happen, the shift from a difficult situation with a workable solution to something with no visible floor beneath it. Whoever built this plan had anticipated exactly how Kang would respond and prepared to neutralize it in advance, which meant one of two things. Either Wu understood Kang more deeply than Kang had ever understood himself, or someone much closer had been feeding information from the inside. Day, Kang said quietly. How many people knew about those three contacts? The silence that followed was very long. Kang, Day said, very quietly, like the first word after a long silence that was itself a kind of confession. Kang's expression did not crack, it never cracked, but something moved through those dark eyes that Zara had not seen there before, something that looked, just for a moment, like grief. How long? Kang said. 6 months. They approached me 6 months ago. They told me the organization was becoming something you would not have recognized 10 years ago. They told me they were not planning to destroy it, only to change the leadership, and that you would be given the option to step away. And you believed that. I wanted to believe it. There is a difference. Day looked at the floor. I did not pass operational details. I did not agree to be part of anything violent, but I confirmed the names of your most trusted contacts when they asked. I thought it was to ensure they would not be harmed in a transition. You gave them everything they needed to remove my protection, Kang said. And tonight, while I stood in this building, you were going to what? Watch. I was going to stop it. I came here tonight to stop it. You came here tonight because I called you. Another silence, denser than all the others. I need you to feel what Kang is feeling right now. This man trusted Day with his life, with everything, and Day handed the blueprint to the people trying to end him. Are you angry? Because you should be. Tell me in the comments exactly what you would do in Kang's position right now. Zara said nothing. This was not her moment to speak. This was the moment where a man discovered that the longest loyalty he had could be bent, and she understood instinctively that bearing witness to it silently was the most important thing she could offer. Kang looked at Day for a long time. Then he said, "The North Service exit. You are going to take her there. Now." Kang, you do not get to argue with me tonight. Take her to the exit. Then come back, and we will discuss what your part in this means when it is over. Day led her through the lower service corridor in silence. She had nothing to say to him. She understood why he had done what he did, the way you can understand the anatomy of a mistake without it reducing the damage. He was a man who had been told a story that made him feel like he was choosing the version of things that caused the least harm. He had been wrong. But she knew what it looked like when a person was trying to carry their wrong gracefully, and that was what Day looked like. He will be all right, Day said, without looking back. Kang has survived things that should have ended him before now. That is not what I was thinking about, she said. He glanced back briefly. What were you thinking about? She did not answer. She was thinking about the way Kang had looked at her when she told him she was staying. That fraction of something that had broken through before the control sealed it over again. She was thinking about the fact that she had known this man for less than an hour, and she was now incapable of being indifferent to whether he walked out of this building. That information was not useful to her right now. She filed it away. They reached the north exit. Day pressed a code into a small panel beside the door. A heavy lock disengaged. He pushed the door open and scanned the exterior with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this before. It is clear, he said. The vehicle will be at the end of the service road in 4 minutes. She stepped to the threshold. The night air came in cold and real, and she felt the reality of her escape settle around her. She was going to walk out. She was going to get in a vehicle. This was going to be over. And then her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A message containing 3 words. She read it twice. He knows you. Zara turned back to Day very slowly. This number. Who has my personal number from tonight's booking? Day's expression shifted. She watched it happen in real time, the recognition of something he had not considered. The original booking confirmation, he said. Your contact details were on it. Wu would have seen them. Then this message is from someone inside Wu's circle. She looked at the message again. 3 words. He knows you. Not a threat. A warning. Someone inside Wu's operation was trying to tell her something. And the something they were trying to tell her had nothing to do with her leaving. It had something to do with Kang. He knows you. Wu knew something about her connection to Kang, something she herself did not know yet. Something that made her specifically useful or specifically dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with event coordination. She stepped back inside and let the door fall closed behind her. I need to go back, she said. Miss Zara, there is something Kang does not know, and I need to find out what it is before Wu uses it against him. She was already moving. Before we go any further, I want you to make a prediction right now. What does Wu know about Zara and Kang? Drop your theory in the comments, because I promise you, you are not fully ready for what is about to be revealed. She found Kang in the lower corridor, moving with 2 men she had not seen before, men who had appeared from somewhere in the building at his silent instruction. She stepped in front of him and he stopped. The message, she said. She showed him the phone. He read it. His expression did not change, but his eyes came up to her face with a precision that told her he understood immediately what it meant and that the understanding was significant. Where did you get this number? He said, not to her, to himself. Then, Hyun. Hyun sent this? Hyun was Wu's strategist. He built the operational plan for tonight, but Hyun has limits that Wu does not have. He would not have expected Wu's plan to include you specifically. What plan that includes me specifically? Kang was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that preceded something heavy. Your brother's name was David Osei. He worked for a shipping contractor that handled logistics for my organization 6 years ago. He disappeared while transporting a sealed cargo through Busan. That cargo was never recovered, and neither was he. The corridor went cold. My brother, she said, very quietly. I did not know he had a sister. I did not know you existed, but Wu knew. Wu handles personnel records that go back to before I took over certain operations. He would have found the connection, your name, your agency, your booking history. He hired me on purpose, she whispered. He did not just hire you to manage the event. He hired you because if something went wrong tonight, if the events here were ever investigated, your connection to David would have made you the most convenient person to implicate. An external contractor with a personal history tied to the organization. Motive, access, opportunity. She stood with that for 3 seconds, 3 full seconds of letting the scale of it settle. Then something clarified inside her. The grief of 10 years. The unanswered question. The way she had always known the explanation existed somewhere and had simply never had access to it. It was here. It had been here all along, inside the world she had just walked into by accident. David, she said, do you know what happened to him? I know what Wu told me at the time, that he abandoned the cargo and disappeared voluntarily. He paused. I did not question it because I had no reason to. I should have. You are telling me that Wu lied to you about my brother the same way he has been lying to you about everything else for years. Yes. She looked at him for a long moment. Then we need to take Wu alive, she said. Kang looked at her steadily. That was already my intention. Good. She straightened her blazer. She adjusted the collar with the same precision she had used to adjust 100 event setups in 100 different rooms. Then let us go end this. The event hall was full by the time they reached it, not of mourners, of Wu's people, Wu's 12 men positioned throughout the space with the specific casualness of people performing relaxation while being entirely alert. They had been told Kang was already handled. They were here for the ceremonial part, the public confirmation of a transition that the assembled guests, who had arrived believing they were attending a private memorial, were about to witness. Wu stood at the front of the hall near the podium, dressed impeccably, relaxed in the way of a man who believed the hardest part was already done. He saw Kang walk in and the relaxation ended. The hall did not erupt immediately. The eruption came in stages. First, the recognition, the murmur that moved through the assembled guests when they understood that the man in the photograph on the wall was standing at the entrance looking at it. Then the confusion. Then the specific understanding that settled over the room when Kang's men came through the side entrances simultaneously. Wu's composure reassembled itself with impressive speed. He reached for something beneath the podium, and Zara saw it happening before anyone else in the room had processed it. Kang. She said his name once, sharp and clear. He was already moving. What followed was not a prolonged confrontation. Kang did not operate through prolonged confrontations. He operated through decisive action at the single critical point. He crossed the hall in the time it took Wu to bring the weapon to bear, and the two of them met at the podium in a collision of 15 years of shared history and a betrayal that had been building so slowly that neither of them had felt its full weight until this exact moment. "You were going to let them put flowers on my name," Kang said. Wu did not apologize. That was the thing Zara noticed. He did not apologize, and he did not look away. "You were never going to share it," Wu said. "Everything we built, everything I gave to this. You took the seat and you never looked back. I looked back every day. You were always there. As your second, never as your equal." The silence between them held the weight of everything that was true and everything that was too late. Hyun moved from the left side of the hall. Zara saw him. She was standing at the rear of the hall, scanning the room the way she always scanned event spaces, mapping movement and position with the trained eye she had spent years developing. Hyun was moving toward the side exit with the specific intention of someone creating a contingency escape before the situation fully closed. She blocked the exit. Hyun looked at her with the specific calculation of a man assessing whether the person in front of him was a serious obstacle. She looked back at him with the specific calm of a woman who had already decided she was. He sat down. Kang's men had the room contained within 4 minutes. Wu was taken, not harmed. Taken. Because Kang had made a promise and because there were questions that only Wu could answer. Questions about David O.C. This, right here. This is what I promised you at the beginning of this video. A man stood at his own funeral, and he walked out of it standing. If this story got inside you the way I think it did, subscribe right now. Hit that bell. Because the stories we tell on this channel are just getting started, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. The building emptied slowly. Guests who had arrived believing they were attending a memorial and had instead witnessed something they would spend years finding the right words for were escorted out with the quiet efficiency that Kang's organization had deployed for decades. By the time the hall was clear, the white lilies were the only things that had not moved. Kang stood at the front of the empty hall and looked at the portrait of himself on the wall. Zara stood a few feet behind him, giving him the space that the moment required. "In my culture," he said, without turning around, "there is a belief that seeing your own memorial means you are given a second life, a life that belongs entirely to choices rather than inheritance." She did not respond immediately. She let the words settle. "Is that what you believe?" she said. "I did not use to believe anything except what I could control." He turned to look at her. Tonight changed the inventory. She walked toward him slowly, not in the way she had moved through the building all night, purposeful and alert and mission-driven, in the way of someone who had decided to stop performing and simply be in a room with another person. "Wu will tell you what happened to David," she said. "Whatever the truth is, I need to know it." "You will know it," he said. I will make sure of it. There was a moment between them, the kind of moment that does not need to be described because the people inside it already understand it completely. It was not a beginning, it was not a declaration, it was the recognition of something that had been building in the wrong direction all night and had somehow arrived at the right one. If you felt that moment, if you felt what just happened between these two people standing in that empty hall full of flowers that were supposed to end one of them, share this video with somebody who needs this story tonight. Stories like this are rare, and the people who find them deserve to find them together. Day appeared at the far end of the hall. He looked at them both across the full length of the space. He looked like a man who understood that what he was witnessing was a consequence of everything he had set in motion and that it was better than anything he deserved. He bowed his head once. Slowly, the night was over. And yet, Wu was in custody. But Wu had not acted alone. He had spoken to someone above both him and Kang, in a structure that Kang had believed he stood at the top of. Someone whose name Wu had refused to give even under the most direct pressure, a name that Kang's people had been working toward all night and had not yet reached. And somewhere in a sealed evidence box recovered from Wu's private safe, there was a file with David Osei's name on it. Zara did not know what was inside it yet, but she knew she was going to find out, and she knew she was not going to find out alone. There is a name in that file. A name that Wu would not speak out loud, even when speaking was the only way to save himself. A name connected to David's disappearance. A name that reaches further into Kang's world than either of them is prepared for. Part 2 is coming. Subscribe and turn on every notification because when that video drops, you will not want to find out about it 3 days late. And until then, share this one. Let somebody else find the story tonight.